In the remote villages of the Himalayas, in the heart of Nepal, life does not begin in haste. It begins with the cold, an ancient cold that descends from the mountains before the sun, passes through stone walls, touches the skin, and reminds every family that time is measured differently there. The day is born wrapped in silence, broken only by the wind moving through the valleys and the distant sound of footsteps on hardened earth. These villages are not points on a map. They are entire worlds suspended between sky and rock, where surviving winter is more than enduring. It is understanding the rhythm of nature and accepting its limits. Here, high in the Himalayas, the cold shapes gestures, choices, and memories. It teaches how to close a door, how to light a fire, how to gather bodies close to preserve warmth and stories. Each house bears the marks of generations who learned to remain, not out of defiance, but out of belonging. In this place, living is a constant dialogue with ice, wind, and silence, a quiet agreement between human and mountain, renewed at every dawn. High in the mountains of northwestern Nepal, in regions such as Dolpo, isolation is not a circumstance, it is a permanent condition. Villages spread across arid plateaus, surrounded by peaks that seem to close off the horizon, as if the world ended there. In winter, paths vanish beneath the snow, footsteps grow rare, and the land becomes an almost absolute border between inside and outside. There is no rush to cross these mountains. There is respect. Every trail demands time, breath, and silence. The climate dictates everything. The wind does not merely blow, it instructs. It teaches where to build, how to orient a house, when to leave and when to stay. The land, hard and frugal, offers little, but enough for those who have learned to listen. Here, distance from the rest of the world is not measured in kilometers, but in seasons. For months, no news arrives, no goods arrive, no people arrive. What exists is what was already there. And within this natural confinement, families learn that surviving the cold is also learning to live with less noise, less excess, less urgency. At dawn, in Nepal's remote villages, the cold still rules. Before light touches the low rooftops, the interiors of homes awaken in silence. The first sound of the day is the crackle of old firewood, carefully stored since autumn, rekindling a fire that never fully goes out. Hands move toward the flames as if seeking not only warmth, but continuity. The day begins small, contained, almost shy. Outside, the sun advances slowly between the mountains, illuminating sleeping fields and empty trails. No one rushes. Every gesture respects the temperature of the body and the world. Women rise wrapped in layers of thick wool. Men study the sky before stepping out, and children learn early that winter is not confronted, it is accompanied. The human rhythm here adjusts to the mountain's rhythm, slow, precise, essential. Time is not counted in hours, but in simple tasks: heating water, feeding animals, checking doors and walls. Dawn announces neither urgency nor promise. It merely confirms that one more day has been granted, and that, in itself, is enough. When the sun finally gains enough strength to be felt, work begins. Not as obligation, but as an extension of life. In Nepal's remote villages, each task is measured by available energy and by the cold that insists on remaining. Bodies move slowly, protected by layers of fabric, while hands know by memory what must be done. There is no room for wasted effort. Every gesture carries purpose. The fields, small and resilient, wait for the right season to produce. In winter, work turns inward. tending animals, repairing walls, sorting grain, preserving what was harvested before the snow arrived. Herding requires silent attention, constant vigilance against wind and ice. The animals are not merely sustenance, they are companionship, shared warmth, part of the same cycle of survival. Here, work does not separate humans from nature, it brings them closer. The cold hardens the land, but sharpens wisdom. It teaches that survival depends not on brute force, but on patient repetition, on experience passed from generation to generation. To work in these villages is an act of respect for the mountain, for winter, and for the limits of the human body itself. Between one village and another in Nepal's mountainous interior, paths are not merely lines on the ground, they are stories carved by human steps. Narrow trails trace hillsides, cross silent valleys, and climb slowly, as if honoring the breath of those who walk them. In winter, these paths become fragile, nearly invisible, covered by snow or ice, and every journey becomes a deliberate decision. Walking here is an act of necessity, not choice. Visiting a relative, exchanging food, carrying simple news. The outside world exists but remains distant, separated by days of travel and the constant risk imposed by the climate. Still, these trails keep the villages connected, not by frequency, but by meaning. Each encounter is rare enough to be valued. Footsteps leave marks that soon disappear, but the habit of walking endures. It teaches patience, attention to the terrain, reading the wind and the sky. In these mountains, movement means trusting the body and collective memory. The path does not rush, it teaches. And in teaching, it keeps alive the quiet bond between people who have learned to exist even when the world feels far away. Inside the stone and wood houses of Nepal's remote villages, the world contracts. The walls are thick, built not for beauty, but for resistance. Small openings allow light to enter sparingly, preserving heat as a precious resource. The interior is simple, almost austere, yet it holds everything that matters. Fire occupies the center, not only as a source of warmth, but as a living presence around which the day is organized. The floor bears the marks of old footsteps, and the walls have absorbed decades of smoke, voices, and silence. It is there that the cold loses part of its strength. Bodies draw close, sharing the same space, the same warmed air, the same slow time. There is no rigid division between work and rest. Everything unfolds within the same shelter, at the same restrained rhythm. In Nepal's remote villages, food is born of care with time. Nothing is immediate, nothing abundant. Every stored grain, every dried root, every preserved piece of meat carries the memory of past effort and the quiet promise of continuity. Cooking in winter is a slow, almost ceremonial act. The pot remains for hours over a low fire, while steam blends with smoke and warms the house's interior. Food serves not only to sustain the body, but to preserve unity. It is shared carefully, divided fairly, respecting the limits of what exists. Eating together is not a social custom, it is a survival strategy and an expression of belonging. The warmth from the food joins human warmth, and for a few moments, the cold feels distant. Flavors are simple, repeated, familiar. There is no pursuit of variety, but of permanence. Each meal reaffirms a quiet agreement between people and the land that sustains them. Sharing here is more than dividing food. It is confirming that no one crosses winter alone. Winter, in Nepal's remote villages, does not arrive suddenly. It announces itself gradually, like an old visitor everyone recognizes. First, the wind shifts, then the sky closes, and then snow begins to transform the world into silence. The seasons here are not background, they are forces that test patience and collective memory. Prolonged cold teaches waiting. For months, time seems suspended. Days repeat themselves, nearly identical, and it is within this repetition that endurance is built. Each family learns to measure winter not by its harshness, but by its length. There are days when the body feels heavy, when silence grows dense, when the world seems reduced to the interior of a heated house. Still, no one is surprised. Winter always prevails, but it is never final. In Nepal's remote villages, community is not an abstract concept. It is a daily practice. Families live close not for convenience, but out of mutual necessity. Each person carries a quiet role, learned by observing elders, repeated without haste, passed on without speeches. Traditions are not preserved out of nostalgia, but because they still work. They warm, they feed, they guide. Children grow by watching ancient gestures, how to deal with the cold, how to respect the land's timing, how to listen before acting. There is no clear rupture between generations. The past remains present in simple routines, discrete rituals, and words spoken around the fire. Faith, when it exists, does not seek grand explanations. It manifests in acceptance of the cycle, in trust that the season will change. Remaining here is a collective act. No one stays alone for long. Continuity is born from this invisible network of care, where each life supports another. This is how the village resists time, not by isolating itself, but by staying united. In Nepal's remote villages, surviving the cold has never been merely a matter of physical endurance. Above all, it is a form of understanding. Understanding that time does not need to be conquered, that nature does not demand victory, only attention. Here, life is built through calm repetition, accepted silence, and the awareness that remaining is itself a profound choice. These families do not live on the margins of the modern world. They live at a different tempo, a tempo where what is essential is clear, where excess dissolves in the wind, where every gesture carries weight and meaning. The cold, which for many represents threat, becomes a teacher. It teaches limits, it teaches closeness, it teaches patience. By observing these villages, the world feels less urgent. There is a lesson contained in the smoke that slowly rises from the houses, in the trail that disappears beneath the snow, in the fire that insists on staying lit. Perhaps surviving winter here is simply this: learning to exist without haste, in harmony with what endures. If this slow rhythm, this silence, and these stories resonate with you, subscribe to the channel and keep walking with us through places where time still lingers.